Charles Kuralt had a knack for reminding America of its human side. The CBS newsman died Friday in New York, but left his road trip tales as a legacy.
America's most trusted narrator had a secret that would have killed him if it had become known during his lifetime. Charles Kuralt, the soft voice of CBS who reassured millions with his warm on-the-road tales, lived a double existence. For 29 years, secretly he sent another woman $600,000, funds that benefited her kids, and even created a clandestine existence with her in Montana, while his lawful wife at home thought she was married to a dedicated husband. He purchased Patricia Shannon property, footed the bill for her children to attend college, and addressed his letters pop to children not his by birth, but in all the ways that counted his own. On TV, America met a gentle man driving the rural highways of small towns, sharing tales of common people with gratitude and awe. But in private, he lived two totally different lives, the one as admired journalist and family man, and the other as clandestine partner and father figure. The reality was kept hidden for decades, until the day he passed away. That's when a letter came to light, and the carefully constructed image of America's quiet chronicler came crashing down in scandal. Charles Bishop Kuralt's own life started not in the glare of publicity, but in the quiet of rural North Carolina. He was not actually brought up in Wilmington, although born there on September 10, 1934, at James Walker Memorial Hospital. His mother, Ana Kuralt, had only come there because it was the closest area with a hospital. After his birth, Wallace and Ana went back to Wallace's 100-acre tobacco farm in Enslow County, belonging to her parents. That is where Charles grew up during his early childhood. Farm life was rudimentary, no electricity, no indoor plumbing, and no sink. There was a pump on the porch for water, which was consumed from a hollowed-out gourd suspended from a nail. There was wood stove heat, and there was work all the time, but Charles grumbled not. Instead, he filled his days with fantasy. He constructed newspaper kites pasted with flour glue, knotted them with tobacco string, and sent them soaring so high that he joked God himself could read the headlines. He whittled slingshots out of dogwood sticks and tickled Venus flytraps with straws, fascinated by every living thing in sight. His family's existence was nomadic from town to town: Washington, North Carolina, Steedman, Atlanta, before settling in Charlotte in the mid-1940s. Wallace Kuralt was in charge of the Department of Social Services for Mecklenburg County, where he introduced young Charles to the poverty and injustices of society. Every relocation widened his horizons, honing his interest in the lives of people. In Charlotte, he found his life's passion, radio. At age 14, he was announcing minor league baseball games and doing a music show on Waze Radio. That year, he also won a local writing competition with a funny sports tale about a dog that disrupted a baseball game. Charles studied at Alexander Graham Junior High between 1945 and 1948, where his teacher and baton introduced him to the world of journalism. He had his own column, The Kaleidoscope, in the school newspaper, demonstrating his ability as a natural writer. But then there came a moment that revealed his talents to the world. In 1948, at just 14, he won the National Voice of Democracy contest. Among thousands of submissions, just 4 were selected across the country. Charles received a $500 scholarship, now worth over $5,000, and was escorted to Washington, D.C. He met with President Harry S. Truman in the White House and gave his winning address at Colonial Williamsburg, standing in the exact place where Patrick Henry previously bellowed, "If this be treason, make the most of it." Charles explained afterward that his own words were intended to tap into that flamboyant American spirit, evidence of his talent for linking words with feeling. Those formative years provided him with something else even more profound. His summers spent on his grandparents' tobacco farm in Enslow County exposed him to both the drudgery of work and the beauty of telling stories. He bound tobacco leaves for curing, rode 50 miles to Kinston's tobacco market with his grandmother Rena, and listened to her stories about bandits who used to rob farmers coming back with money. Charles fantasized that he was defending their wagon from imaginary outlaws. It was practice in observation, in listening, in observing the world, not as it was, but as it might be narrated. At Central High School in Charlotte from 1948 through 1951, Charles was already well known among his peers. He was an editor of the school newspaper, received awards, and was voted most likely to succeed. Already, he had shaken the hand of an American president, received scholarships, and become a radio announcer. When he attended the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill in 1951, he studied history but dove headlong into journalism. He worked at a number of different radio stations, broadcast football and basketball games, and produced radio documentaries. He became a member of the St. Anthony Hall literary fraternity, developing a reputation as a thinker and a reporter. He was indefatigable, able to write scripts, make broadcasts, and ace tests all in one day. In 1954, he was appointed editor of the Daily Tar Heel, the student paper. There, his daredevil nature came out. He criticized racial segregation in editorials, infuriating politicians, and being accused of communism. He satirized the university's ban on alcohol. He wasn't merely reporting. He was defying authority, pushing the limits of freedom of expression. By the time he graduated in 1955 with a history degree, instead of going on to law school, as his family had anticipated, he went into journalism. It was a risk, but a rewarding one. In 1957, when he was just 23 years old, CBS employed him as its youngest-ever correspondent. Within 2 years, he was reporting from New York in the shadow of his idol, Edward R. Murrow. By 1960, he was hosting a primetime show, Eyewitness to History, and reporting on the Kennedy-Nixon debates, viewed by 77 million Americans. Variety described him as young, good-looking, full of poise and command. His assignments became more perilous. In 1961, he was dispatched to Latin America as CBS's top correspondent for 23 nations, reporting amidst riots, revolutions, and violence. He remained until the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962, then came back to the U.S. to report on civil rights and Vietnam. He survived jungle ambushes, recorded soldiers dying in front of him, and marched with demonstrators in Selma. By his early 30s, he'd witnessed more of America's ills than most reporters would in a lifetime. But by 1967, he was tired of following wars and headlines. He proposed to CBS something revolutionary. Let him patrol the roads of America with no assignment, only a camera, and find everyday people and their stories. Initially, CBS laughed, but one executive gave him 3 months to experiment. That experiment turned into On the Road, a 25-year series that traveled 48 states, generated more than 600 stories, and recorded 1 million miles. He recorded maple syrup producers in Vermont, 99-year-old Masons in Iowa, the hobos on freight trains in California, and school teachers who never left their one-room schoolhouses. He discovered dignity in forgotten lives. During the period when the headlines were dominated by war and riots, his segments earned the nickname 2-Minute Ceasefires. He was a national treasure by the 1970s. He won Emmys and Peabody's, rode with a wagon train celebrating the bicentennial, and hosted the first broadcast of CBS Sunday Morning in 1979 with a report on bald eagles. His soothing presence consecrated Sunday mornings for millions. By the 1990s, he was America's most admired journalist. But even while America loved him, Charles Kuralt was living a secret life right under everyone's noses. In 1962, he had wed Suzanne Petty Baird in a 1-minute ceremony in New York City Hall. She thought she was his wife, taking care of their Manhattan social life. But in 1968, Kuralt encountered Patricia Shannon in Reno, Nevada, a divorced mother of 3. Their encounter initiated a clandestine romance that persisted until his death. He wooed her with roses, assisted her divorce, resettled her family west, and started providing for them financially. Within the next 3 decades, he sent her over $600,000, millions in current dollars. He purchased her Montana land, constructed cabins and offices there, paid her children's tuition, and signed letters pop. He even purchased a cottage for her in Ireland. To his New York wife, he told her about the Montana land as merely a fishing place. It was, in fact, his second home. By the 1980s, Patricia's son accompanied him on assignments, mixing with CBS employees who took him for a family member. Charles kept up the ruse with breathtaking ease, shifting between worlds without anyone suspecting. Then in June 1997, when he was dying of lupus in a New York hospital, Kuralt wrote Patricia a letter. Only 16 days prior to his death, he assured her that he would see that she inherited the Montana property if it were necessary. Charles Kuralt passed away on July 4, 1997, at age 62. At his memorial service, Patricia stood bearing the letter. His wife, Petty, whom he had married for 35 years, was shocked. She found out then that her husband had been leading a double life, secret from her. The disclosure provoked an acrimonious court fight. The Montana property, valued at $600,000, was at the center of suits. Kuralt's first marriage daughters became part of the struggle upon Petty's death in 1999. Patricia presented her testimony in court, reciting Charles's poems he had written to her, reminding her of years of love, encouragement, and mutual family life. In 2000, the Montana Supreme Court ruled in her favor. The estate had to shell out $350,000 in land taxes on property they no longer possessed, bringing their overall loss to almost $1 million. The carefully cultivated public persona of Charles Kuralt, reliable, kind, upright, was destroyed. Patricia Shannon wrote a memoir in 2002, Charles and Me, and she told it all. She disclosed the poems, the phone calls, the houses, the presents, the years of camaraderie. She wrote about how he assisted in raising her children, how he spent holidays with them, how he intended to retire in Montana alongside her. The man who spent his life revealing America to itself had ultimately lived the greatest lie of all. Charles Kuralt is still one of America's most respected journalists. His voice continues to resonate through reruns of On the Road and Sunday Morning, soothing and sage. But his tale serves as a reminder that even the most respected voices conceal secrets, and that behind the warmest smile may be a life of contradictions. For 29 years, he lived two lives, one on camera and one in the heart. And it wasn't until his death that the world learned everything.